what do we do after this, right? God's not going to ask us how much cars, how much houses, how much money, how much this, how much that we have. God's not going to ask us, do you have a credit card? Do you have cash? He's going to ask us, what did you do when he gave us the time here, right? I was just so blessed in our time working in Kalahui with you. You did teach me a lot. There were times when things got hairy, things got out of control. Sometimes there was times we didn't see things eye to eye out in the field, right? We had our disagreements, but we always kept those things aside and we continued moving forward, and that's why here we are today, coming back to talk about how everything leads back, right back to you and I.
Welcome back to Hawaii Real, everybody. I'm your host, EACHOTHER. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to this episode and this channel on YouTube. It's at Hawaii Real. And for all you listeners out there on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pandora now, and on Amazon Podcasts, hey, can you leave us a review on this channel and tell us what you like about it and what we can do to improve? It's going to help this channel so much, and it's going to help so many other people. So that's what we're trying to do here at Hawaii Real, is make it real for anyone else. This episode is brought to you by the Native Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce. The Native Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce's mission is to malama Native Hawaiians in business and commerce through leadership, relationships, and connections to economic resources and opportunities. The Chamber's programs and events are designed to facilitate connections and promote business growth, professional and economic development, and sustainability. The Chamber's membership is open to individuals, nonprofit organizations, and businesses of all sizes. To learn more about the Chamber and how you can join, visit the website, www.nativehawaiianchamberofcommerce.org. Okay, so today what I have on with me, a great friend, longtime friend. I've known this guy since, 10th grade, 11th grade? 10th grade. We were hanging out in the same clique from high school, and for some reason or another, the universe separated us and then brought us together, and separated us and brought us together, and separated us and brought us together again, all of its own volition, without our planning or anything like that. But I have with me Tony Kalahui.
Thank you very much, Eo.
Thank you so much for coming on this show. You got your Hawaiian Springs water with you?
Absolutely, yes.
Beverage host, want to send a shout out to Hawaiian Springs water.
Thank you very much.
7.7 alkaline. A little bit more healthy for you than, say, Dasani. And it's from the Big Island. Like, they take it right from the aquifer.
Always good.
Bottle it.
Always good.
They don't add stuff or anything like that, man. I saw a commercial on that, posted on the Facebook page, Hawaii Real. And I was really surprised that, hey, yeah, they actually just take it straight from the aquifer, just bottle it.
And they have this in Seattle as well.
Oh no, they send it all over the country. It's really great stuff. So, and it tastes good. So I like it. It's good stuff. I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor, but I actually love this water. All right, Tony. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Now, you're living in Seattle. You were a Hawaii boy, born, raised, went to Kamehameha. We met in 10th grade. Is that when you came to Kamehameha?
Yep.
Okay. And from there we started hanging out. And then the funny story, and I tell the story to so many people that I meet, and they ask me how I got to where I am right now, going through the police department and going off to college or whatever. And a lot of the times, actually almost every time, that story, you play a large part in that story, because I have to bring out this fact that the only reason that I went through and joined the police department was because I met up with you at college.
Really?
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I don't know if you remember, but when I was going to college at UNLV, so backtrack for everybody listening, we were high school classmates, graduated, we went our separate ways, and we were in the same clique in high school, went our separate ways. I went to UNLV, and you went off to Embry-Riddle. 2 years later, I'm walking through campus at UNLV, and who do I see going through a tour of the campus? You. I was like, hey, Tony, what's going on? Hey, what are you doing? So met up with you there, and at that time, you told me that you were going through, you had finished Embry-Riddle, you had gotten like your pilot license or something,
right?
And you had come to UNLV to finish out your bachelor's degree,
right?
And you were going to get it in criminal justice,
right?
And at the time, I was going there for business. And I sucked at it. I was a business major
in business, really.
Totally. Which is funny because my whole goal to begin with was to own a hockey equipment company.
Okay.
Yeah, flash forward 20 some years, and I actually do own a hockey equipment company. But nonetheless, I was having the most difficult time going through the math classes for business management.
Okay.
I could not grasp it. I was failing math. Meet up with you, and you're like, hey, yeah, I'm going for this. I'm going to go through college and get my criminal justice degree, and then I'm going to go back home to Hawaii and join HPD because that's where my brother is, and he's having a great time, and they have a great schedule, and they have all these benefits, and blah blah blah. And you're basically recruiting me to go follow you along. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I started to look up what it took to get a criminal justice degree, and lo and behold, it was like basic math. I was like, oh, dude, I can totally do that. I think the highest math we had to do was like statistics or something, which is to me isn't really math at all. So I was like, oh, dude, okay. So I changed my major. Because of you, I changed my major. And because of you, I changed the direction of my life and actually followed you to come home to join HPD.
And you never shared this story with me.
I
This
never
is like
did?
the first time that I'm hearing this story.
Great.
Come from
That's
you.
where we're at. Okay. So the story goes on. We graduated around the same time, 2020. No,
December of 2000.
Okay. So
December of-
for me, December 2001.
No, you stayed.
No, I took an extra year.
Okay.
I totally took an extra
I
year.
was done December of 2000.
Right. And you came home.
No, I still stayed in Las Vegas. I still remained in Las Vegas.
For the whole year. You came
Yes, I
home
did.
before I did. You came home like a whole year before I did and applied to join HPD.
Correct.
And something happened personally where you didn't make it through the complete process.
The first
first
time.
time.
That's why I stayed in Vegas that first time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So in 2000.
So I didn't know that part.
Yeah. So in 2000, my father had. I take that back. In 2001, was my father had passed away. Great. Because we got into the police academy December 5th of 2001. Am I correct?
2002.
Okay, 2002.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm right on the time. My father passed away in December of 2001.
Okay.
I was supposed to be accepted at that point into the Honolulu
Right.
Police Department. I was 22
Yeah,
at the time.
we were like 22.
And I think that was a time from the police department where I probably wasn't really mentally prepared to go through because my father had passed away. So I decided to stay back in Las Vegas and then continued working. And then at that point, there was a decision to now make my way back home to Hawaii. And then I had reapplied for the police department right after and then got in the same time. We both got in at the same time.
Well, that's like the second part of the story. It's like, okay, we went from high school, separated, found each other again in college, separated, and then I came back I stayed an extra year after college, and then I just worked, built up income, came back to Hawaii, and applied for HPD. And this was before cell phones and everything like that, right? We didn't have our phone numbers. We were not in contact.
No, we weren't in contact at all.
So I go through the application process and I get the letter, hey, show up to Kalahui Middle School for your testing.
Right.
So I show up early because I know, hey, I'm going to be the first person in line.
Right.
And I show up, and who the fuck is the first person in line?
You showed
this
up.
guy.
And I showed up.
Yeah, you're the first person in line. I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? It's like, you were supposed to be like in the department already. Like, what happened?
Right.
And I think that's kind of where you totally started telling me the gist of, what happened with your father and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay. So we take the test together, go through the entire application process together, and we were staying in contact.
Yep.
And we actually got into the police academy together.
Correct.
So when we kind of stayed together for that period of time.
Right.
And then, as we're in the police department, I remember we're
about 3 weeks into the academy, or 3 or 4 weeks into the academy.
And we were doing rolls, forward rolls and backward rolls in the judo dojo that we had at the police academy. And we'd done a bunch of rolls, and we're standing there in formation. And you're in the line to my right, off to the back a little bit, one position back. And I just see you out of the corner of my eye, just boom, face plant right in the mat.
Right.
And I turned to look, I was like, oh crap, what happened to Tony? And you just like shot up, you're like, oh, what happened? And like the instructors came and like grabbed you and pulled you out of class, and it turned out you had
shingles.
So they had to,
and it was like chickenpox because I never had chickenpox before.
So they had to like medically disqualify you for that class,
right?
And recycle you to the next class.
To the next class, correct.
So here again, we're separated, and I go through the police academy, and then you go through the police academy, and then following recruit
the class right behind you,
right? Which, I mean, okay, that's not splitting up too much. But then what happened after that was that I graduated and I eventually make my way through training and get assigned to Kalahui, District 5. Of course, a year later, who comes along to District 5?
I come along into District 5.
That guy, yeah. And so from there, we ended up being actual beat partners in the same beat for, what, 5 years or so?
About 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. About 5.5 years.
Groomsman at my wedding, yeah.
Yes. Good times.
Good times. And now here you are on my show. It's 19 years later.
It's called going full circle.
Full circle.
Right? And when you think about it, when we both ended up on the mainland together going through school, and how you mentioned we've come back, it always seems to lead back home to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And when you really think about it, Hawaii is in the center of the entire earth. The most isolated place in the United States. It's the pico of the entire universe. And we seem to draw back here to the same portal, into the same place, right back into the pico again. To come back and reunion. It was almost like a reunion, I guess, so to say. Being born and raised in Hawaii, I am a local boy as local boy can be. But when you look at the things that we've done, especially for Native Hawaiians, right? We had our ali'i leave at one point or another, went either to the continent or to Europe to study about different places, to explore in different places, educate themselves on what was going on. And eventually somehow they made their way back home. You stayed more longer than I have, right? You've ascended in the police department as well, going from a patrol officer or recruit patrol officer to an administrative capacity, which is a testament of who you are as a Native Hawaiian, right? You went off to the mainland, and I always encourage a lot of kids, a lot of people, you have to leave the island in one way or another. You can't be surrounded 40 miles one way, 40 miles the other way, surrounded by water. You have to leave, get that education, and come back.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward, I spent 15 and a half years in the Honolulu Police Department, and made some decisions in my life where I wasn't really sure where it was going to lead me. For some reason, I ended up in Seattle with the Port of Seattle Police Department. And I always tell people this all the time. You cannot leave the ALOHA spirit in Hawaii. It has to go to places that need it. And right now, with everything that's going on nationwide, with especially in policing in our occupation and in our career, a place like Seattle really needs it right now.
Right.
And when people ask me, why did you leave after all these years? 7-8 years, maybe close to retiring to make that 25, right? I told myself I was going to surrender everything to the Lord. My better half, her ambitions was to fly for a major airline, which she is doing that now. She's flying all across the continent, Alaska to Mexico, living her dream. And I think it became very important for that was you cannot just live my dream. We have to live our dream together. Our kids went off to college. My stepson came back to Hawaii and joined the workforce. My daughter is finishing up school in college. She has one more year left. But just looking at where we've progressed, you have a lot of Native Hawaiians that do leave during difficult times, right? We have COVID going on right now. But if you think about, when we look at ourselves as Native Hawaiians, we can go back in history and look at two important things that occurred back. Let's go way back into probably in the 141 AD to 1241 AD. There was a time when the migration of Native Hawaiians left Marquesas, right? They left the Marquesas Islands and they came to Hawaii. The other migration came from Tahiti, right? It wasn't until around 1778 when the Europeans started to come in, but a lot of people do not realize that the Native Hawaiians for 500 years sustained themselves on this island, right? But you still have a group or a Native Hawaiian population that decide they want to leave Hawaii for many different reasons, right? my reasons aren't identical to theirs. It might be similar to some people as well.
Sure.
Right. And one of the things that I do point across is many Native Hawaiians do leave Hawaii now because there's better opportunities, more resources, higher salaries, right? And then
Sports.
lower cost
Like
of
that's a new one.
sports, lower cost of living,
Yeah.
right? And touching upon sports, my daughter played soccer, and in order to get that competition, what do? You have to fly over 2,500 miles
Yeah.
to the nearest state.
No.
Get those competition.
A guy I know is retiring early because his son needs to go to the mainland to play at a mainland high school in order to get looked at by colleges because they're simply not playing here like they were before. So you're having these, high school age athletes that have to fly away and go to a school in the mainland just to, better their future because they're going for scholarships and stuff.
It's the competition. It's a competition and being able to be looked at.
That too.
I was fortunate to be an assistant coach for a club soccer team here in Hawaii.
Yeah, I remember that.
For girls soccer. Leahi Soccer Club.
Right.
Yep. For Leahi Soccer Club, and I traveled with the team to many different locations throughout the United States. As far as, I think the farthest we went was to North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina, in fact. We've also gone to Kansas City, Missouri, but it was also to get the girls exposed. In the latter part, as the girls were getting older, my assignment was more to expose the girls in front of college coaches. So that also meant pretty much like marketing the girls as they got older to be looked at by coaches from Division I, Division II, and Division III colleges. Yeah. We were fortunate enough that during that year that the girls were ready to sign their letter of intent. I can proudly say, along with the two coaches that I was able to coach with, every girl on that team got a scholarship to a college.
Nice.
And some stayed home as well, but they all had some type of scholarship when they finally graduated from school, and it's a testament from having that tenacity and that resilience to go out and travel on the mainland.
Right. So back onto the conversation of leaving Hawaii and gaining the knowledge and coming back. What was your story, and what was your original thought of leaving Hawaii after high school even?
I was never supposed to be a police officer. I had a fascination for aviation and airplanes. I was supposed to be an airline pilot. I'm not supposed to be a police officer. And many people are saying, what are you doing? From a pilot and a police officer are two different occupations, two different pay scales. I had a fascination with airplanes. And in my family, and my brother being a police officer, I had an uncle that was a retired lieutenant. My dad's brother, my uncle Tony, who I have his namesake, he was a Honolulu Police Sergeant as well. He didn't retire, but he was a Honolulu Police Sergeant. On my mother's side, both of my granduncles, my granduncle Clarence Liu was Assistant Chief of Police for the Honolulu Police Department, and the longest serving police chief in the Honolulu Police Department, also my granduncle, his brother, Dan Liu. And so that, some people will say, legacy. Oh, you have a legacy. Mm-hmm. You have a legacy. So there was somewhat some pressure coming through the police department because it was kind of almost like a second renaissance of officers coming to my brother and I, right?
Sure.
And it was weird because my uncle Tony, who was a sergeant, he also his desire was to be a pilot. And it's almost like our careers are mirroring each other because he got his pilot's license. I got my pilot's license. He went into the Honolulu Police Department. I went into the Honolulu Police Department. He left as a sergeant. And the reason why he left was for personal reasons. It was a time when the police department issued driver's licenses way back in the days. Mm-hmm. They were the ones that issued driver's license. And he felt at that time that there was some issues, some corruption, some issues that he didn't want to be a part of. He wasn't participating in it, but he didn't align to the values of the department that time. That was a totally different era. And he decided to leave. And it was ironic because he went to corporate. He worked for RCA afterwards. And so I'm going through this same narrow road going, okay, what's going on? Am I aligning myself to mirror his, where he went? Mm-hmm. I mean, he started in the Army. He was a lieutenant in the Army. My father was a command sergeant major, retired in the U.S. Army. He went through customs and in law enforcement. And before he passed away, he said, Tony, do not become a police officer. We have enough police officers in our family. Your brother is already a police officer, and I don't want any more police officers in our family.
Well, good job listening to Uncle.
Yeah. And I told my father when he passed away, and when I came home, I said, Dad, I'm going to join the police department. And he was on his bed, and to his dying last breath, he said, I want you to fly and continue flying and not be a police officer like your brother. And I said, Dad, just guide me through this. I'm going to be a police officer. Just keep me safe. And that was my farewell to him on that. And I'm sure, he was happy. I know that he would have been proud of us.
He was proud, yeah.
And my brother recently retired after 25 years as a corporal. 2019, he was police officer of the year. He was awarded police officer of the year, corporal of the year. So that's a testament to him. So he made it to his 25 years.
Yeah.
And
kudos to Derek out there.
Yes, very much so. So he's going to enjoy surfing. He's definitely a surfer. So he's going to surf his way through retirement.
The police department has a good retirement.
Yes,
it has a good pension.
Yes, it does. Speaking of the police department, yes, leaving here was a very difficult decision, right, just because of the legacy that my brother obviously left. In 2017, I had an interesting incident that occurred where we had a male that was on the freeway overpass on Middle Street, September 2017. I was with my sergeant at the time, Brian Owato, and the male wanted to commit suicide. He had let go off the guardrail. I had grabbed him. The following year, the department had, graciously awarded me the Bronze Medal of Valor. And that was a difficult award to accept. And the reason why it's a difficult award to accept is because there are many officers in this police department, especially the Honolulu Police Department, that have never received an award or an accolade and have done, if not the same, if not more than I have. And it was really, receiving it was really dedicated to them, because they'll never be heard of in the media. They'll never be heard of in the public. And that was a changing point for me. That was a spiritual changing point and turn for me, where when there were discussions shortly after I received the award, it was hard to receive it because there was that notion that I was going to be leaving, because I was already in the process to depart for Seattle. Mm-hmm. And, I prayed about it, and my other half wasn't there when I received it, but we both discussed, hey, life is short, tomorrow is never guaranteed, and the grave knows no rank, and you're just a number, the number that's on your badge. You're easily replaced, and it's hard, because a place that I loved, a place that I served for, and you and I both know we were in public housing, and all of the people that we made an impact with, good and bad, right?
Yeah, we were working at KPT and Camp 4 Housing.
Yeah, humble beginnings, working in patrol, working on the streets. Now I needed to take all of the skills that I acquired here, including my culture, including what I was brought up with, our values, and then bringing those values to a foreign place like Seattle, right? And coming to the Port of Seattle. So the Port of Seattle Police Department is Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, which includes the Port of Seattle, which is directly in front of downtown Seattle. And they go about 25 miles north up to Shosho Bay Harbor, where the port also owns kind of like a boat marina, residences. We have about 100 police officers in our department, 5 who have been former Honolulu police officers. And we bring that special touch. And the reason why I say that is we come to a place where we exude all of our values, and we put that out on the line in front of people, right? And the challenges in policing these days, you have a lot of people that don't have a trust for police. And now we're trying to reinstill that trust. Yeah. And the challenges in Seattle, I like to say, between Seattle and Hawaii is very fortunate to have a very good law enforcement group of individuals. And the reason why I say that is, in a community that you serve, the people are more, or the public are more appreciative and more trustworthy of the police department. Here. And that is good. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Coming to a place like Seattle for me was challenging, because here I was thinking that the people would be the same, right? But now there's a challenge of, I need to gain their trust. Yeah. And the difficulties that come with that is when you have, sometimes you may have public officials that think otherwise, right? And it creates that wedge between the community and the police in what we're trying to accomplish in our job. And I think that's what makes it challenging. And that's what makes me want to stay in this job more, is because if I can share that aloha spirit and share that trust, even in one person, they can walk away knowing, hey, you know what? When I was in Seattle, I met a police officer. They're not all bad, right? I get disheartened when those messages come out, basically demonizing police, right? Yeah. Because we've all come into this occupation, coming into this noble profession, exuding those noble qualities of helping people. We put on a uniform with that expectation of going into danger in what the public expects us to do. And I enjoy working in another place where I can share our culture, whether it's playing the ukulele in an airport terminal, right? Whether it's even speaking pidgin amongst the HPD officers, but we also like to have get-togethers, right? We also like to share having potluck even with our own partners. So we had a Sunday dinner in the station, and it was something that's never heard of, where you had a group of people that can break bread together from different police departments, because we've all come from different police departments to the Port of Seattle. We've all had different experiences. We have one officer that was all the way as far as Georgia, as a Georgia sheriff that came over, right? So you're breaking bread with people you wouldn't necessarily break bread with, and it's different because you're learning about your partners a little bit more. Here, culturally, it's different because you start off in a police academy. You're a civilian. You go 6.5 months training, and you become a police officer.
And everybody here goes through the same thing. So you've all gone through that same gambit of training and hardship, to get to where you are. But you're saying from your police department, you're having people that are coming from different backgrounds that are coming in as lateral police officers.
Yes, and that comes with different personalities.
Right.
But it's so enjoyable because you have so many different officers with different skill sets that come together. Sure. They have different, a lot of strengths, a lot of weaknesses, and we just pry off of each other. But I always say the officers here, there's something about officers here that you can't beat anywhere else. And I wish I could put my finger on it. I don't know, maybe you can try to put a finger on it, that what makes Hawaii officers unique. I can't tell you.
I think the one obvious thing that sticks out to me here in Hawaii is that it's such a small community. It's, Oahu, 1 million people or less. And from everyone that I've met in all my comings and goings that I've talked to about knowing, or when they find out I'm a police officer or whatever, and they ask me, oh, do you know so-and-so? Oh, do you know so-and-so? Like, whoever I meet, they know someone in the police department, or they're related to someone in the police department. And I think that's what makes it a little bit different, is that we have such a large police department in such a small populated area. So you're related to someone, or you know someone that's a police officer. Or as a police officer, whenever you're in an engagement with someone else, you don't know if they're related to one of your partners, or right, someone in a different district, or if they're friends with someone in a different district. So you kind of try to treat them with a little bit more respect, because you don't know who they might know. And I think that goes for, almost any profession here in Hawaii, is that you never know who you might know. I mean, it's a small island.
Right.
And I think that kind of attitude helps in a lot of ways. It brings that small town kind of vibe and feel to the police department and the community here, where when something happens to a police officer, like in January of 2020, when, those 2 police officers were killed, a lot of people knew them. A lot of people in the public knew them, and their faces were, blasted out there, and people started coming back with, oh, I knew that person. Oh, I did know that person. And it brings it to reality that, hey, yes, in some instances it is us versus them, but in a lot of instances it's not. It is, we are in this together as a community, and it's such a strong community-oriented police department because we are related to the people that we serve.
Coming back in last January and February for both of the funerals was very difficult for me. One, because there were 2 officers that I'd known.
Yeah.
The second hardest part was wearing a different uniform. I was in a different uniform. There were about 20 of us from the Pacific Northwest that came. I think total was maybe between 40 or 50 officers that came nationwide. And it felt a little bit isolated because now I was a outsider because I'm wearing a different uniform of a different department coming for the purpose of
That's your own mind.
being there.
That's your own mind making that decision, because I look at that as, look at this individual that has gone through the fire that we all have here in Honolulu, going through the police department, everything, and then has gone off and shared that, responsibility, mana'o, with another police department, with another community. And he's doing the same job and taking the same values and the same heart to another place. And that's where he's sharing it. And he's bringing that back and representing that, yes, he is doing this same type of work, if not better work, in another place.
And you're correct, because the Port of Seattle allowed the 3 of us officers to represent the port, and they never hesitated when my chief said, hey, you want to go to Hawaii? And there was no ifs, ands, or buts. We were going, and they were there to take care of us every step of the way, right, in leaving there. And I was very proud of that, that they gave us that time to go. And even during both periods between January and February, we had our morning bands on in the Port of Seattle, and we weren't even within the state of Hawaii, which made it unique. And they paid tribute to both officers. Mm-hmm. That was different. I wasn't sure if that was the turning point or if that was just the way our department culture was being changed. But usually you wear the morning band for an officer within the state of Washington. We went outside. It was almost like we broke that barrier. And my chief at the time had stated, he said, we've had a lot of Honolulu police officers come to our department. And he said, this is the least that I could do by allowing our department to honor them in return. And I thought that was a very true testament to the type of administration that we have at the Port of Seattle.
That's a great administrative decision, because I mean, looking at it from a leadership point of view, it's like such a small decision like that can have such great impact on the officers.
Yes, and when I had let the department know, and I think I had put it on Instagram, that we were allowed to warn the officers, even though we were 2,800 miles away, we felt the same hurt here. It's hard because we put people first, right? In all of our jobs that we do, we put people first. And the one thing that I tell people is I never called in sick. When I left for the Port of Seattle, they said, hey, you've never called in sick before. What is it? I never called in sick in the Honolulu Police Department. And the first thing my answer was, for every officer, the 50 officers that passed away in the line of duty, they never get to put on a uniform anymore. They never have their family members seeing them in their uniform. The least I can do is wake up every morning, whether my time was in HPD or my time in the Port of Seattle, I'm putting on that uniform for them and continuing to serve. And that's the hard part, is you want to stay home, but you can't, because they are no longer here to do the job or have that opportunity to do what you and I are doing right now, right? That's a tough one.
Yeah. No, I mean, along the same lines, the only time I've ever called in sick is when I'm actually like over 100 fever. And yeah, I'm not going to work. I had my first perfect attendance leave day last year. That was pretty cool.
I get that perfect attendance.
I didn't take sick.
I get that perfect attendance, but you forget about it.
Yeah.
But, as I always say, people go in policing with noble intentions to serve, right? Yeah. Again, we put on our uniforms knowing that we're putting ourselves in the danger to help others. Mm-hmm. And what do we do after this, right? God's not going to ask us how much cars, how much houses, how much money, how much this, how much that we have. God's not going to ask us, do you have a credit card? Do you have cash? He's going to ask us, what did you do when he gave us the time here, mm-hmm. right? I was just so blessed in our time working in Kalahui. with you. You did teach me a lot. There were times when things got hairy, things got out of control. Sometimes there was times we didn't see things eye to eye out in the field, right? We had our disagreements, but we always kept those things aside and we continued moving forward, and that's why here we are today, coming back to talk about how everything leads back, right back to you and I. Working in the police department up in Seattle, you have a lot of time. We have a generous working schedule. I'm not trying to plug our police department, but we have openings. We have officers that have the desire of coming up to the Pacific Northwest. There are a lot of officers spread throughout the state of Washington that have gone through the Honolulu Police Academy, also Maui Police as well, that want to join. And I'm not in the business of taking away any police officers. If they ask me how it is on the Pacific Northwest, the first thing I say is very different. You have to define your purpose of leaving Hawaii first, okay? You can't just be lured by money. You can't be lured by working conditions, benefits, and those things. Those all play a factor.
I mean, if you watch the news, it's just like madness in Portland and Seattle.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Very trying times for both cities. I have faith in Seattle. There are great people in Seattle. I just have to go and find them, and they're there, right? Seattle's such a big city compared to Honolulu. You're a small pea in the pod, sort of say when you're there in a big metropolitan city like Seattle. But Seattle is also very dangerous as well, right? And so when officers tell me, "Hey, I'm thinking about coming up to the mainland. Can I come on a ride along?" I've taken officers with me from Hawaii in a ride along. They've asked those questions, and I can sell them on it, right? I can tell them, hey, these are all the different opportunities that you can have, right? Just like our explorers did before. They know what's out there. They're not quite sure if they want to do it, but the first thing I tell them is, that Hawaii is very different than being on the continent, right? You live there, you saw the differences. I knew when I left here what I was going to encounter when I got up there, right? But with that, in my spare time, I enjoy the Pacific Northwest. There's hiking, right? We haven't done that yet. With all the hiking trails there's hiking.
There's also bears and mountain lions.
Cougars, right? I was fortunate to visit wineries. There's distilleries. There's so much to do on the mainland. And what I'm doing is, if you want to know why I'm in Seattle right now, I'm checking off my bucket list. I don't want to be 70 years old coming back home and getting wheelchaired on a Hawaiian Airlines flight or any airlines and going back up to the mainland to see it. I'm going to do everything that I can up there while I'm capable of doing. And when it's time to come back home, I will return back home. Right. On the side, myself and my partner, my business partner, his name is Mike Naksayakam. He was my field training officer in the Port of Seattle. We decided to, because we have so much time on our hands and we have such good, only having to work 13 days a month, in our off time, 4 days off, we decided to get into a business. We wanted to go out and try to help people. And the first place that, and Mike is not from Hawaii, he's Laotian. And we both decided we need to help a place. Let's start with Hawaii first. And so we decided to embark on helping the high schools, because on the mainland, the first thing that they ask you is, where are you from? And what high school did you graduate from?
Here.
Up there.
When
you meet other Hawaii people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And people here in general.
That's the connective fiber right there.
And that was kind of a sign, because Mike goes, hey, I noticed when you talk to other people from Hawaii up there, you never know them for the first time, but they ask you those questions. And now he's got
based on your answers, they know a lot about you right away.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It can become a rivalry when it involves sports and everything else when it comes to school. But those are the things that they ask you. So we decided what was a way where we could do good work in the community, still being disconnected, being away. Because believe it or not, Washington is like 10th island.
Yeah.
Okay. There are a lot of people from Hawaii in the airport, all different ethnicities. Polynesian, Micronesian, Samoan, Tongan, Hawaiian. sometimes I feel like I'm working in Honolulu International Airport, seeing them, because you'll hear them in bag claim, right? Hey, officer, Leo, I'm like, oh God, shh, but it's they all come from a lot of them come from Hawaii. So we started a business. It's called To Dominate. My partner Mike Naksayakam, he works with me at the Port of Seattle, and we decided to keep busy on our off days when you have 4 days off. So we started a business. It's called To Dominate. How we came out with the name, I think Mike more or less came up with it.
Were you guys on Instagram or anything yet? Or?
Yes, it's actually TWO. So you spell the two and dominate.
Okay.
It's very simple.
One word.
So we're about to launch probably in the next 72 hours. Hopefully by Friday when I return back, maybe we've been cleared to go ahead and open it up.
All right. So side hustle, what kind of products you guys got?
So what we're doing is our primary goal is to give back to the schools, and we want to give back to schools in every different way that we can, whether it be for like class reunions, so each individual class, or if there are programs that maybe need some extra funding, say you have, whether it be arts to athletics, any outside clubs. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to really have the schools be shown. So we're not even putting our brand out on it. We're just leaving it up to the different schools here in Hawaii first. We do have, we've worked with a few schools on the mainland. We were actually doing slides. So like slide sandals for different schools. We did it for Farrington. We were fortunate to also do it for Kamehameha as well, and St. Louis. Those were our first 3 schools, and then it kind of spawned off where we were like, okay, in Hawaii, everybody goes to the beach, everybody goes to the water.
Sure. Yeah.
And then it kind of spawned off microfiber suede towels, and waffle.
Those are the best towels, man. If you aren't in microfiber suede towels yet, get some. They're good.
And there are a lot of companies that have come out with it.
Sure.
There are different grades of microfiber suede towels, and we decided to go with what we felt was the most superior. So there are many competitors out there. They have their own different designs on there, but we also told ourselves we had about a year of testing. So we took it out to test market to have people try it, look at discoloring, repelling sand, dirt, all of those things. And we found, as opposed to some of the competing companies out there that do sell towels, that we found the more a little bit more heavier than theirs, and then it had a good color range where it allowed us to even do it on 2-sided designs as well. So we also can apply 2-sided designs. And this past year, we were fortunate to collaborate with Fitted Hawaii.
Nice.
You had
Keola,
Ola Raposo on your podcast along with Jared Johnson, and we decided to how it all came out was Kamehameha graduating class for 2021 needed a makana gift for their class. So their committee of parents came forward. One of their chairs people had come and said, "Hey, this is what we're thinking of. This is what we're gonna do. Fitted is on board to do it." And I said, "Hey, I know Ola, I know Jared. I'm gonna give them a call, and then we'll see how we can try to help alleviate the cost part, because we want to give back. This was a total give back from the heart project."
Right. So I had this discussion on a prior episode just recently where in order to build on that venture, that business or anything like that, you have to find a community to help. And that's where you guys are at.
Correct.
That's where you guys are basing your business off.
Correct. And it's really having that charitable component into place first.
Yeah.
For us, we do well in business anyway, or we do well in our jobs anyway. For us, it was almost like philanthropic work, maybe in a way, was, okay, how can we reach a community, but then still instill that, just like Coach Larry Price said, right? School spirit, personal pride, right? So when I shared that with Mike, he started looking up Hawaii sports. So he had this vested interest in looking at Hawaii sports. And then, of course, Mike being from the mainland and our complicated language in Olelo, Hawaii for different school names, Mike had a crash course in saying the different names for the schools and would butcher it, sorry, Mike, but he got it down. Yeah. He started understanding the different mascots or the logos for each school, and then he started saying the names even correctly down to a T. And this is somebody that has never been to Hawaii yet, But he knows if you say Wailua, he'll know right away, oh, Wailua Bulldogs, right? Or Mililani Trojans.
Yeah.
Sometimes the Mililani doesn't come out straight, but then he'll get it.
Sure.
He'll stutter it out. But
he's got the pronunciation down.
Yeah,
mostly good.
So we started doing towels and patches. We do PVC morale patches, and when you look at it, why PVC morale patches? Well, we have a lot of police officers in the police department that wear body armor, and a lot of times when they go to work, it's something to take that pride with them of where they came from in their, with their school.
Literally anywhere you have Velcro, you can just stick that on, right?
Yeah, it can go on a jacket. A lot of, especially a lot of police officers here in Hawaii, you got dash covers. You put it right on your dash cover inside of your car. People collect the patches. So the polyvinyl chloride patch doesn't crack, it doesn't break, it doesn't discolor. All of those, it can handle all of the elements. And we thought, hey, anywhere someone goes, whether it's here in Hawaii or off to the continent for school, or they're relocated there, it's just like taking that piece of Hawaii with them. And we really didn't want to really put a, say, like an individual brand like you would like Nike or Adidas or those things. It was really about going back to the school and where they came from, because people in Hawaii get attached to the school.
So you're basically providing products to the school, or you're selling directly?
So what we're doing, we're doing both. We're selling directly. Some schools have come to us to sell in their individual school stores, and those are things that we're working on.
So you just be the manufacturer, and
they can carry it in their
the
stores.
retailer.
Yeah, they can retail it themselves. Right. So they have those ability or that ability to do that. Or we sell it on an online store, but then what we do is we take proceeds, portions of that goes right back to the school. And any which way that, like if a school came forward and they said, hey, we have an event coming up, we need assistance. Can we take part in that? Absolutely. We'll go out and write a check and get that out there. And now there's that new rule, right, for the NCAA. You have athletes now participating in NCAA. Now that the new rule has been lifted, they are allowed to be endorsed by any brand now.
Right. That is a new thing that's come about. That's only been, well, it's recent, but it's, how long have athletes
this is in the last several weeks
under those rules? Our lifetimes?
You needed to be in professional sports in order to take some type of compensation or gift.
You couldn't play in the NCAA if you had received, monetary sponsorship or anything like that.
Correct. So now that
forever,
right?
It's been like that forever,
right? So now what you're seeing on social media is you're seeing athletes from Hawaii, because I've seen them. You have athletes on Hawaii that are posting, hey, if you are interested in providing any product or any endorsement, contact me or DM me directly. And so we opened that up also. And since we're on the podcast, any Hawaii athlete or, to your listeners or people watching, if you have, a loved one or a friend of a friend that's an athlete that's going to the next level, whether it be here in Hawaii or beyond, we'd like to hear from them. And we think that we can provide something for them, even though they're in college, but remember where they came from, right? Their school that they came from. We want to be able to support them with providing them product, and then also endorsing them and watching them succeed as well in mainland sports.
Cool. Yeah, that's definitely going to help the community. I think for too long, just to dive in a little bit to this NCAA thing, that these student athletes, they didn't make enough money, or their parents didn't make enough money to provide for them, and they're being drawn into these schools to do all this work, on practice and stuff like that, and do all the schooling and stuff, and they weren't able to have a job.
Correct.
It's like, how do you go through college? I couldn't have gone through college without a job.
And there were a lot of restrictions because I worked for Nike in Las Vegas, right? So I worked for Nike. I worked in customer service. So a lot of times athletes, say from UNLV, used to come to Nike Town in Las Vegas. They would be provided product from Nike, but it needed to be signed off by UNLV. So they would come in basically saying, hey, I need socks, or I need a dry fit shirt, and it needed to be cleared by UNLV before they walked in to receive those items, because it was just attached to a part of the school. But they couldn't necessarily be endorsed by Nike as a college athlete to be wearing that.
Yeah, there's a big difference between providing someone product and actually, having their likeness as a logo or as an advertisement.
Right. So for us, we were looking at, hey, we have so much fantastic local athletes that have come out of the state. Over the weekend, I was fortunate to have we had some house guests. Mikey Victorino and his wife Lay. Mikey is the older brother of Shane Victorino.
Okay.
Right, and then their father is the Maui mayor. And so we were talking about what we were doing, and he's like, "Hey, do you have like Maui High yet?" And so we don't have every school yet because word starts to get around. Hey, have you gone to this school?
Yeah,
have
you
gone
guys
to
just
this
started.
school?
Yeah.
Right. And so and there's always the challenges with licensing and branding, right? So you have to get those permissions, and we try to reach out to the different schools to get permission. COVID makes it a little difficult because nobody answers the phone at school, right? They don't answer the administrative phone. Can I get somebody on the phone to discuss and talk about it? So a lot of times I find myself having to fly back here, and I had to meet with schools like St. Louis. I had to meet with schools like Farrington, right? And it was fortunate enough we had a good relationship with Farrington when I was with the police department. And so what would happen is I would say, hey, I need a letter from you guys getting permission to use the likeness of the logo. But the G is just a normal, could be Georgia, could be different. It's just a change of color, Green Bay Packers, right? But they didn't know, like, hey, you don't need a permission, just go ahead and make it. And I said, for the purpose of making sure that we are in line.
Yeah, because you're selling it, you're making money off of it. You're going to want that permission.
Yeah, and that's what we do, and we have to go to each of the schools one by one and request for those permissions. So if there's a school that's not seen on there, and there even say Kamehameha, there's some things that we still have to clear in doing those things. What we want to do is try to give back to, say, a class, right? Or class reunions or a class event coming up. Or we also do custom things. So working with Fitted was our way to give back to Kamehameha by making that makana for them. And we were fortunate because it was a fitted design towel on both sides. And we thought that project was awesome and excellent. And we didn't even need to be known because our purpose was, hey, are we delivering the message of what that class wanted? And are we delivering the most superior towel that we can to that class? And wherever they go, it'd be perfect. So I think we made about 348 towels that came with a towel bag for them. And so we were blessed with that project, just having to do it with Fitted, and we hope in the future that we continue that relationship with them.
No, it's great that you finally have kind of grasped and dove into entrepreneurship. I remember having this talk with you years ago, and you would always have something on the side, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, right? Yep. But is this like your one big thing that you're diving into?
This is one big thing. We're navigating through it. Just coming with a lot of challenges, right? We've made mistakes along the way. I think for Mike and I, we've learned so much about the different colors, color schemes, Pantones. You know, you can't say blue because blue can be violet blue. Yeah. It can be a different shade.
Light blue, navy blue. Yeah.
Yeah. When you look at Pantones, there's like 8 different Pantone colors for blue, but it's still blue, but it's depending on what grade of blue. So like, you know, when I talked to Jared at Fitted, I said, hey, I need all the Pantone numbers. He goes, nobody asks for the Pantone colors. I said, no, we need it to make sure that we have the right color spot on. Funny
fun fact. In the Russian language, there is no just word for blue. There's like 14 or 17 different words to describe all the shades of blue and all the different colors. They all have their own names.
Right.
So they're like, when you talk to a Russian speaker, they're more apt to be able to tell you an exact color. But like an English speaker, you show them several things that are blue, they can call them blue.
Right.
But they don't know like the different grades and different names. They can't differentiate.
Right. So we've also done the blue line. We've also done the Hawaiian flag with the blue line to support our blue. We also done the red line for the fire. And we know that there are other companies that have done those towels as well, but we don't put our name on it. We want it to stand on its own. Where our brand is just right on the tag. It's not even seen indiscreetly. So we're not out there promoting our brand itself. We want it to stand by itself. So we've also done Honolulu Fire with just blue and just the fire that you see on their shirts. We also have that made, and that's kind of a general font. So that's kind of simple, but we also want to give back. So like if you buy like a red line fire Hawaiian flag, and then you buy the fire towel patch and so forth, our goal also is to give back to our firefighters as well.
Good, very good.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. All I can say is you found a spot and a niche to help out a community, and therefore I foresee this business becoming, quite successful. going forward in the future.
Yeah,
Because as long as you're helping somebody and people are going to buy it and people are going to look at that and say like, hey, you know, if I buy this product, I'm doing my contribution to help the community as well.
right.
You know,
And for any of you, like I said, any of your viewers or listeners, if they have like a reunion coming up and they need a mass order, we will definitely make those accommodations
Like ours?
outside. Yes,
sorry.
we'll make those accommodations to help support them. So it's to dominate. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Once we get everything cleared and ready to go, then we'll start opening up the store and then start posting on there. So I know you got your towel and.
Thank you for
hopefully
that towel, man. I'm gonna flash that up picture on the episode. It's gonna be great. Those microfiber towels are good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. You know, Tony, I want to thank you so much. I know your time here on this trip to home is limited, and I just want to say I'm really, really appreciative that you took time out of your day and your trip to come away from your family and actually come here on the show. I just want to say I'm really appreciative of that.
And I will mahalo you as well from where you came from and what you've done here with the podcast. I listened to it in Seattle. I hope a lot of other people listen to it on the mainland as well. You're doing great things in the community, and I'm very humbled to be here. And like I said earlier, with the caliber of people that you've had prior, I am nowhere.
We were just gonna dive into that too, like the imposter syndrome's right there, Tony. It's like,
I'm not in the caliber of the guests that you have here,
but you are.
Thank you for allowing me to take the time out to be with you and share with you everything that we've gone. And I don't know where we're gonna go from here. Maybe we'll go on another full circle and meet up down the line. Probably,
because you know this isn't the be all end all of the podcast. You know, there's different branches that we're going to start doing off of here. So I have a plan of where it's going to go, but I don't know where that plan exactly is going to take me. So who knows?
All right.
Any last words for the audience, man?
No, again, thank you very much. I really, really am truly humble and really appreciative, especially on behalf of myself, including my business partner, Mike, for allowing us to just put that little plug in there. And thank you for all of our police officers, you know, having the discussion today. Hopefully it'll open the minds of the general public and having confidence in the police, because without the police there, our whole island, our whole continent wouldn't be safe without police officers. You know, supporting them is very, very important. Behind that uniform is a person.
Yeah.
Right. Father, exactly. Brother, sister, mother, grandmother, you know. Those are the people that, you know, come out and do the job because they truly care about this community, just as you've done inside and outside of the uniform.
And they volunteer to do it.
Yes.
That's the main thing. They're all volunteers, man.
Yes. So again, mahalo. Thank you very much. And I'll see you again.
All right. All right, everybody. It's been great. Tony Kalahui, everybody. And as always, you know what to do. Stay happy, Hawaii.
I said it soft because I want you to say it.
Okay. All right.